Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm back. And for this video, I'm going to talk about the FBI. The FBI had a report where they basically said that black identity extremists are a bigger threat to the United States than Al Qaeda. And as you all know, Al Qaeda is a terrorist organization that has declared war on the United States. They actually are responsible for 9/11, where over 2,000 people were killed when terrorists flew airplanes into the World Trade Center towers, killing thousands of people. So they actually believe that black identity, so-called black identity extremists are a greater threat to the United States than Al Qaeda. I think it's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous. So-called black identity extremists have not committed acts of massive terrorism in this country. You had a couple of, examples of a few uh, individuals that killed a couple of police officers. That can't be compared to the types of terrorist threats that Al Qaeda poses to the United States. It can't compare to the threats that ISIS poses to the United States. It can't compare to the threats of white supremacists in this country. White supremacists are even a greater threat to national security, to the nation, than Al Qaeda and any other foreign based terrorists. There are so many studies that have proven this, stuff done by various intelligence agencies pointing this out, how these white supremacist groups are responsible for more violence than these foreign based terrorists. And we see examples of this every single day. Examples of terrorism committed by these white supremacists every day. Whether we're talking about Dylan Roof going into a church, killing 9 innocent black people who were simply praying, or we're talking about this tragedy that happened recently, where you had this guy, you had other tragedies, where they have shot up synagogues, you know, shot up a whole bunch of people in El Paso, Texas, just because they're Hispanic. Going into El Paso, Walmart in El Paso, Texas, shooting random Latino people, motivated by ideology of hatred of white supremacy. We had an example of a brother here in Maryland being killed while at school. We have an example of a terrorist going all the way to New York City, traveling from Baltimore City to New York City to kill some random black person. We have the example of the man who killed 2 black people in a parking lot at Kroger's. All of these examples. We had an example of Tim McVeigh, who blew up a federal building. We have examples of, all kinds of terrorist acts happening in this country. But yet and still, they want to label black people as the greatest threat to the United States, the greatest terrorist threat. And this is nothing new. We saw this during the counterintelligence program. We saw this then, where they tried to destroy black leadership, black organizations, and black people, where they wanted to literally prevent the rise of a black messiah. Where they locked up leaders on trumped up charges, where they assassinated leaders like Malcolm X, like Martin Luther King, like Fred Hampton, like so many leaders in our community assassinated by the government, arrested by the government on trumped up charges. Organizations wiped out like the Black Panther Party, even traditional civil rights organizations, nonviolent organizations were infiltrated and, attacked. So this is a continuation of it. And, we just need to be aware that the federal government is watching us. They are listening to us. They are monitoring us. And we should not be surprised. This is a continuation of a long history of government surveillance against black activists. You know, from the days of Marcus Garvey, you know, way back then, that brother was being monitored by the FBI. People like W.E.B. Du Bois monitored by the FBI. Organizations like the Nation of Islam, people like Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, all these people monitored by the federal government. You know, Martin Luther King, phones tapped. You know, the FBI tried to encourage him to commit suicide, said they had dirt on him. And they had all these derogatory things to say, trying to encourage him to commit suicide. Even people like Malcolm X, his organization was so thoroughly infiltrated that his head of security was some FBI or police informant. So this is a continuation, and we shouldn't be surprised when we see the fracturing of the black community, the activist community. That's the work of, you know, informants, the work of people that are paid to disrupt and destroy black organizations. This is nothing new. So we just need to understand what time it is. And when I get a chance, I'll post a link to the article that I'm referencing for this video. You know, I hope that you all take the time to read it. But it's a shame that, you know, in light of all this violence committed by these white supremacists, they want to focus on us as if we are the greater threat, when we're not responsible for any of this violence that we see. We're not the ones sending planes into towers. We're not the ones shooting up Walmarts and shooting up churches and all that kind of stuff, shooting up synagogues. We're not doing that. But yet and still, they want to label us as the greater threat when it comes to terrorism and stuff like that. Even the most militant black people in this movement aren't talking about, you know, running up on somebody and shooting them and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I want to hear your thoughts. Please rate, comment, subscribe. Before I sign out, I'm going to look at a couple of the comments that people have left. Yeah, so somebody said white supremacy created Al-Qaeda. I'm not surprised that the creators of Al-Qaeda said that. Also, the feds got agents in the conscious community and are using ADOS to create division between black people. Exactly. Exactly, man. You know, Al-Qaeda was supported when they were fighting against the Russians. The United States government gave them training and gave them resources. That's what they did. And this ADOS movement is doing nothing but creating division, and that makes it suspect in my mind. When I look at a movement where one of the founders is affiliated with a white supremacist, I have to question whether or not that organization is legitimate, man. Whether or not it's a genuine organization. So yeah, I want to shout out everybody in the chat. You know, I appreciate you tuning in. Again, I'm going to be back up on here doing my live streams. You know, I think YouTube got rid of Google Hangouts, but I'm going to be on my phone, and I may get one of those programs so I can do live streams on my computer. So somebody said affiliated with a white supremacist who? There's this man by the name of Tanton. You know, he's created all these organizations, many different organizations, and one of those organizations is Progressives for Immigration Reform, or something to that effect. It's an organization that Yvette Carnell sits on the board of, and an organization affiliated with a white supremacist. For those of you who are new to this information, which has been available everywhere, I'll post a link in the cards so that you can check that video out that I did a while ago. Also, I will post a link to an article that the rapper Talib Kweli did about this, where he goes into detail about some of these things. So I want you all to check that out. So with that, I'm going to have to say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Please rate, comment, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post this new content. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you.